Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. All right, so people have been asking me questions about all this stuff here. So I thought that I would once again give you a complete understanding of my experience. I'll tell you some of my story. I mean, I could seriously make a movie, some really crazy movie about all the stuff that I've experienced with all of this. So we'll get started with that. So let me first, once again, tell you if you're interested in what it is that I'm talking about, two places that I want you to go: maoshan.thunderwizard.com. You can find out exactly the practice that I'm talking about, which I'm now, for the first time, I believe, in history, teaching this thing publicly for the first time through video. I don't know that anybody else has done that. The other thing is you want to go here to thunderwizard.com, click on Warrior 90 Day Lightning Qigong. And that is where we're going to have what's called the Mao Shan University. And I'm going to share with you, eventually, everything that I've learned about this. So, the background behind this is that this practice is steeped in a lot of mystery. So I can only tell you what I've been told, as well as what I have learned, as well as what I've experienced. But as with any esoteric, legendary spiritual practice, you never really know if you're getting the truth, or if you're getting legend, or if you're getting metaphor that teaches you a truth. But I'll start with what I was told. So here's what I was told. When I first walked in, what happened was that I was, this was 30 years ago. I was in my late 20s, and I was an actor in Hollywood, and I was a co-founder of a theater company out there, and I was teaching acting classes, and I was acting, and I was going on auditions. And of course I had to make a living while I was doing all that. So I took all these temp jobs, and I took a temp job working, I don't remember what it was, but as I was sitting there, my friend who had gotten me that temp job, I was asking him, what martial art should I start off with? I was throwing out different ideas, and I was kind of saying I wanted something more spiritual, but I don't know how effective they are and all that. And it was just like out of this movie. From behind me, this tall, must have been 6 foot tall Navajo, full-blooded Navajo guy, hair down to the floor, turns around and swivels around in his chair, and he says, "Are you looking to train in martial arts?" And I said, "Yes, and I'm looking for something more of a spiritually oriented thing." And he says, "Come to this class." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Don't worry, I will get you in." I was like, "What do you mean you're going to get me in?" He says, "Oh, only people who are invited can come. I will let you in." And I had, of course, had a little bit of experience and studied around. So I asked him, "So what is it like?" And no matter, everything he said just didn't make sense. And every question that I asked, he would just say, "Just come and see." So I showed up to the first class, and they were doing this kind of stuff over here. But in the beginning, when I walked in, it was him, this 6 foot something Navajo guy, and this little Asian guy who was shorter than me, must have been like 5'6", and they were doing this weird little dance. It looked like they looked like they were tap dancing or something. I covered my mouth, because it looked so ridiculous and funny to me. And then they saw me and said, "Oh, come on in." And so I came in, and a few other people arrived. And long story short, they started teaching me first these postures. And so just trying to get my body into some of these postures was a little awkward, because I was lifting weights at the time and I was very stiff. And then they went into practical application. So my friend, this new friend that I found at this temp job, he comes over and he says, "All right, I'll show you how some of this is done." And he was demonstrating on me, and I won't go into what he was doing, but he was demonstrating. He said, "This is about energy." And so he would just barely touch me, and I would feel this huge like energy explode inside of me. And I was feeling, it was strange. It was like physically, he wasn't knocking me back, but yet there was definitely, heavy physical contact, but the energy would go into my body instead of trying to push me from the outside. It would go into my body, and it was very intense feeling. And then he tried to show me how to do the technique, and he said, no, get rid of the muscle, don't use any muscle, just do this. And I said, that's not going to do anything. He says, trust me, just do it. So I did that, I did something, tapped him on the chest and followed his instructions. And I heard this loud crack, and he went, ugh, like that. And then I had this feeling come over my body that to this day I haven't experienced to that degree, but this feeling came over my whole body, and I shifted into another reality. I could feel it, I could sense it, and for a split second I knew that I could walk through the wall. I just had no doubt about it. I knew that I had shifted, my energy had shifted, and I was no longer physical, that I could walk through the wall. And as soon as I had that realization, then my head kicked in and said, that's impossible. And then whoop, I was back. And then I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? And that was very unnerving. And then at the end of the class, then the teacher came and he started doing practical applications. So he started showing us, here's how you do this. And I'd never seen anybody move that fast in my life. And it didn't look real. It looked like they were faking it. He would barely move and move really fast and barely touch the guy. And you'd hear what sounded like firecrackers going off as he was hitting this guy multiple times. And then he called me over and he said, okay, I'll show you what this feels like. And I said, okay. So he says, just stand there. And so he started doing this movement in the air. Like if I'm standing here, he started doing it in the air right here. And he said, I'm just doing this. And he says, before I get to that, he was doing that to the senior student. And he said, come over here and put your hand on my arm. And I did. And he says, now tell me if you feel me physically tense up. And he was just doing this, and he was touching the guy, and you heard this thud, and you heard the guy go, ugh. And he said, do you feel any tension? And I said, no, your muscles are really loose. You're totally not tensing up at all. He says, that's right, because I'm just delivering energy. I'm not tensing up. So he did that when it came my turn, and he did that in front of me, and he did this in the air. And then he tapped me on the chest. Boom. And I felt this bomb go off inside of my chest. And like back then, I had these big pecs. So it shouldn't have bothered me, somebody just tapping me. I shouldn't have felt anything. But it felt like a bomb went off inside of me. But worse than that, I felt this, it felt as though he had screamed at my soul. That's the best way I can describe it. And this was the most shocking part. The physical pain was very real, but the feeling as though somebody had just screamed at my soul was very unnerving. Now, as you know, I had an abusive older brother, so I had a good poker face. So I could take a punch. So I didn't, and I went into instinct mode, and I didn't show anything. I didn't show any pain or any, and he went, So he said, I'll do it a little harder. And then he tapped me again, and boom, it went off even, twice as intense inside my chest. And again, this feeling that I felt my soul literally jump out of my body for, a split second. It couldn't tolerate the energy. And being who I was, I put on my poker face again, and he went, all right, I'll do it a little stronger. And in that moment, I knew that he was going to hit me again, and the thought of it was so frightening. It took everything in me not to turn around and run out of there screaming like a little girl. That here I was, I wasn't, I'm not very tall, but I was a few inches taller than this guy. I could have easily picked him up and tossed him, but knowing that if he wanted to, there was absolutely nothing I could do to defend myself against whatever he was doing. And this was going through my mind in that split second when he came that final time and he tapped me on the chest, and I couldn't hide the very real effects of that. You heard this thud, and there was, and he goes, so you see that? And then he went on to say, he said, I'm only using 10%. So imagine that 90% more than that, and I couldn't. And then I had, I think one of my greatest gifts, if you will, is I had this thought where I said to myself, if he can do it, I can do it. And I don't know where I got that confidence, but I did. I said to myself, if he can do it, I can do it. I'm going to figure out how he's doing that. And so that was it. I was in for the long haul. So then he started telling us the history of this thing. And he said that on this mountain called Mao Shan in China, that 2,000 years ago, there were these people who learned how to overcome physical reality. And they learned how to overcome death. And he said, you can't tell anybody the name of this. So I wasn't allowed to tell anybody that I was practicing Mao Shan. I wasn't allowed to do that. He said, because people will be frightened of you. He says, you can't let people know that you're doing this. You can't show it to them. You can't teach it to them without my permission. And if you want to bring somebody in the class, it has to be somebody that you vouch for. If you vouch for them, and you're responsible for whatever they do. So it was kind of like getting in the mafia or something. You're vouching for whoever you're bringing into the class. And he said that 2,000 years ago, these wizards, these sorcerers, these Tao people, these Taoists would do all kinds of different exercises and techniques. And one of the things that they would do is that they would do these practices, and then if you do it correctly, you die. Like your body dies, and they would bury you. They'd put you in a box and they'd bury you for 30 days. And just to make sure that this process was working, they might even dig you up and look to see if you're still in there. And sure enough, the person would be dead in the box. And then come the 30 days, they would open up the box, nobody'd be there. There'd be nobody in the box, but that person would be walking around. But they would have this different body where they could walk through walls and they could bilocate and do all kinds of other crazy things. And he said that's what the real masters used to be able to do. And so I took this to be metaphorical. I'm listening to him, and for the first 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, I was thinking to myself, this is metaphorical. And then I realized, he's being totally serious. What the hell have I gotten myself into? What the hell is this? Is this guy nuts? What the hell's going on? So I've since learned a lot more about that, and I've learned a lot more about what this was, and it got even more interesting as time went on. So as time went on, and many years later, I was able to do some research to find out where this all truly came from. And it seems as though I can't say what's real and what's not. I can't tell you what's true or what's not. I can tell you what my experiences have been, which have been equally, I haven't died and resurrected myself, but a lot of really crazy things have happened, which I've shared some of those experiences with you. But it turns out that throughout time in China, the governments there, one racial group will take over the government of China, and then they will fight with each other, and then another racial group will take over. And so when this Mao Shan was founded, the racial group that was ruling China, which is the majority of the population, is of this, are they Han Chinese? I don't know the exact racial group. I think they're Han Chinese. and they were ruling the country. And then the people that we now call Mandarin came in, and they were the minority. They came in and they overturned the majority of the people who were ruling China, and they then started to seek out all of the opposition. You know, if you were of the opposition, if you used to be the elite, they sought you out and they hunted you down and they killed you. And so this group of people had to go into hiding. And so they would go to South China, which is a very mountainous region. It's sort of like the Wild West. It's lots of mountains and canyons, and so it's a place that you can get lost in. You can get lost in the mountains and the forest down there. And so these Mao Shan masters had to run from the authorities, and they went down there. Now the same thing happened to the Shaolin masters, the Buddhist masters. They had to also run from the ruling authorities. And so you had this interesting scenario for, I don't know, I think hundreds of years in southern China in the mountains, where you had these Shaolin masters and these Mao Shan masters and a bunch of other kinds of masters as well. And they would join forces, because many times they would have to either fight off bandits, or they would have to fight off governments, or, you know, those kinds of things. But at the very least, it was a dangerous place. There were bandits everywhere. There were, you know, government forces coming in looking for you all the time. And, you know, there wasn't any law. It was the Wild West. So you had to fight your way just with your neighbor for water or food. It was, you know, this is why Southern Chinese martial arts is so varied. And let me just say something about that. You know, whenever you hear somebody talk about Kung Fu, and they talk about Kung Fu, or they talk about traditional Asian martial arts, that is a misunderstanding. There is no such thing as a one Chinese martial art. It doesn't exist. The word Kung Fu simply means discipline. So meditation is a form of Kung Fu. You know, learning how to you know, paint rice grains is a form of Kung Fu. Whatever it is that takes discipline and effort is Kung Fu. In fact, the guy Confucius, his actual name is Kung Fu Tzu, which means the old man of discipline. So each village had to create its own martial style, and it had to keep it secret from all of the other villages. Because if your neighboring village that was your enemy, or even if they weren't your enemy, if they knew what your secret technique was, then they knew how to defeat you. If they wanted to come over and take over your water, or, you know, whatever it was. So some of the things that have trickled down, like Tai Chi, for example. The Tai Chi that you see people doing, this cute little Tai Chi, that was originally an extremely lethal secret martial art that has been completely watered down now. And there's nothing wrong with that, because what gave it so much power was now the thing that people use for their health, which is what I'm doing here. If I'm being completely honest, I'm teaching you this very intense martial art, but I'm not teaching martial arts. You can't do that over video. That is something you have to learn in person, and I'm not doing that anymore. But now you're learning how to fight negativity and evil by learning this. So it's very similar to Tai Chi. Tai Chi is no longer a deadly assassin martial art, but it is extremely healthy, and it creates, opens up the meridians and gets the organs functioning together, and is a very powerful addition to meditation and energy work. In fact, it is a form of energy work. And this one is what I'm doing. I just realized it now. I'm not trying to be anything. I'm just doing my job here. But if this ends up taking off, then this could turn into, you know, in 100 years, this similar to Tai Chi, but it has a different vibration. People will be doing these practices not because they're having to fight off assassins in the mountains of southern China, but because they're seeking to reach a higher level of energetic vibration. So let's talk about that for a moment. The even if you see me doing what you just saw me doing here, looked a lot like Tai Chi. So people who do Tai Chi, that last part, you would think, oh, he's doing that push hands, or the whatever, the horse's mane, parting horse's mane. Oh, that's from Tai Chi. But what makes it different, even all the stuff you see me doing over here, you can't tell by looking at it, but all the stuff I'm doing there specifically is designed to open up the meridian systems to the heart mind. This is where the lightning resides. And this was the secret that these guys had. That all the other Taoists, the reason why I couldn't tell people that I practiced Mao Shan was because they would think I was an evil sorcerer. They would think I was a black magician. And I, against recommendation, I was first doing it. I was young and naive, and I was wide-eyed and excited because the energy that I was feeling was unbelievable. And I just assumed that all Taoists had this. There's Mao Shan, there's Hua Shan, there's Wu Dang Shan, there's all these different kinds of, Mao Shan. I thought they all had it. I thought it was just all variations on the same thing. Because they all talked about the 5 elements, they all talked about yin and yang, they all talked about becoming nothing, and all that same Lao Tzu type of stuff. They all said that same stuff. So I figured the energy was the same. And I went to the Taoist Institute of North Hollywood. I don't know if it's still there or not. And Carl Totten was his name. And he was the abbot there. And it was a storefront studio in Studio City. Is that what I just said? North Hollywood. Sorry, it was a storefront, one of those glass storefront places, in North Hollywood. And I saw it, and I went and I knocked on the door, and Carl Totten, this big, tall, black guy, comes to the door, and he invites me in, and I say, I'm just learning Tao and blah, blah, blah. And he's, oh, we do this and we do that, and we train in this and that. And he says, what style of Tao? And I said, Mao Shan. And his face just went, if he could, his face went pale. His eyes got really big, and he looked at me like this, and he said, that's dangerous. And he said, demons jump inside your body. And yeah, you get a lot of power, but you die really early. He says, that stuff's really dangerous. He says, what do you do? And I'm not kidding. He said, do you work with like dolls and put pins in them? And I said, no. I'm just learning these Kung Fu forms. I don't know anything about what you're talking about. Do you do any kind of rituals or meditation? And I said, no. I've never done it. I have no idea what that's about. He says, I was told this was for fighting demons with your bare hands, not for getting possessed by them. And so he was still very nice. He said, we do this and we do that. And I came back a week later, and I knocked on the door, and I could see through the glass that he was in his office there. And he looked out and he saw me, and he just kept at his desk. And I figured, oh, this is a test, right? It's a Kung Fu test. So I sat out, and I just stood there. He knew I was there. Had to have been 10 minutes of me standing there. And he finally gets up, and he comes to the door, and he opens the door, and he blocks the door, and he says, what? And I went, I was shocked because he was so friendly to me when I first met him. He was so friendly and inviting, and come on in, and you can. And I said, and there was a little, flyer on the front talking about a meditation class, and I said, I was just wondering if you still taught that. And he said, yeah. And I went, okay, I guess that's all. And then he slammed the door in my face. And I went and told my teacher about it, and my teacher laughed, and he said, no, you can't tell, especially Taoists, you can't tell them about this. They get scared. He must have talked to his Sifu in China, because he told me about his Sifu, the Grand Master in China of whatever sect he was doing. He must have talked to his Sifu, who must have told him, don't let him in. He will bring evil spirits and blah, 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 blah. So then I came to realize there's something different about this. Now, fast forward 30 years later, I've been doing a lot of research and a lot of, I've since learned and practiced a lot of the normal Taoist energy arts. And I've done some reverse engineering, because now I know something about meridians, and I know something about where the energy is placed and the type of energies. I've practiced Tai Chi. I've looked into other things like Xing Yi and Bagua, and I've practiced normal Taoist meditation, and I've realized this is completely different. It's the same in that we're dealing with life force energy, but the meridians that are being opened and the vibration is totally different. And that's what these other Taoists were sensing, that the energy was very different. And it was frightening to them because, one of the things that Taoists did, as well as Shaolin and everybody else, is that they would test each other. And so they would go and they would challenge masters to, what they would call, they would come for a lesson, which would meant that they were giving them a friendly challenge to fight to see who was the better fighter. And the Mao Shan guys would always devastate them, and it was so frightening to them that they would then, in order to save their ego, they would say that these men are getting their power from evil spirits. But whenever Wu Deng Shan or Hua Shan had some kind of a problem with a cursed area, or an exorcism needed to be done, or there was a ghost infestation, guess who they would call? They would call these guys to come in and do whatever they did, and then they would hope that they would leave as soon as possible. That same guy in the Taoist Institute of North Hollywood said that his master said that he once saw a Mao Shan guy come out of the mountains, and he said the things that guy did scared him so much. We're talking about a grand master, a Taoist grand master. All he did was he saw a guy come down from the mountains who was Mao Shan, and whatever he did was so unbelievable that it frightened the hell out of this Taoist master. Now, I know why that is now. And this is the time. If there was ever a time for this power to be released to the world, now is the time. Because we cannot trust information. Yeah, you heard it right. You heard me say it right. There is nobody giving you true information. The media is not telling you the truth. You are getting propaganda from both sides, whether it's Fox News or whether it's MSNBC, CNN, BBC, doesn't matter. They are not telling you the truth. I'm going to be sharing more on that on the Odyssey channel. I've got a whole thing all set up, but I've got to upload it there. It's too bad we can't do live streams on on Odyssey. So what we're doing with this, is we are opening up a new power center that has been kept secret for 2,000 years. You've heard of Qi, which is the navel center. You've heard of Kundalini, which is the psychological energy that rises up the spine and opens up the chakras. Those are two different energies. They're complementary. One usually stimulates the other. And then there's a third one that does not get opened unless you know the secret movements that will actually open up the meridians to release that power. And that power is called the heart mind. It's called the Shin, spelled Xin. And it is also called the Emperor's bodyguard, meaning that it is the power that protects the soul. And it is, the element is lightning. So it's a feminine fire element, but it's actually lightning, the power of lightning. So back when I was going to that first class that I went to, and I told you that, I was a big, I was like I am now. I was bodybuilding and lifting weights, and I knew that if somebody wanted to, throw a couple of punches at me, if I tightened up, I'd be able to handle a decent punch. And so when this guy barely taps me with his palm, which, by the way, this is the direct connection to the heart center right here. When he taps me with his palm and my body doesn't go flying backwards, but I feel as if a bomb has gone off inside of me, that's the lightning power. So this is why when we would try to film this, and years ago, I tried to help my teacher get more clients and students, and we filmed the practical applications of this. And then when we looked at it, it said, this doesn't look like anything. It's because you see somebody moving really fast and you hear this thing that sounds like firecrackers going off, and you see people moving around like they just got shot with a machine gun, but nobody goes flying back. And so it looks fake. It doesn't it looks like what just happened there? I didn't see anything. And that's because we're not what makes things look really impressive in the movies, I know because I've done martial arts movies before, is that you place the camera behind and then you miss the guy, you take a swing and the guy has to move his head like he just got hit. And so it's the movement of the body that gives you this impression that somebody just got hit really hard. This is why Muhammad Ali, people thought he was faking it when he took out Sonny Liston with the Phantom Punch. When if you slow it down, you see him, he just barely pops him. And Sonny Liston just kind of flinches a little bit and then goes down. It didn't look real. That's because he had some kind of, it's similar kind of thing. He knew how to crack somebody, but you don't go flying back so it doesn't look as impressive. That's because it's lightning power. This is the lightning. You get struck by lightning, it's going inside of you. People get struck by lightning and their shoes burn off. This is the kind of energy that we're dealing with. And this is why when it came to fighting evil spirits, they would call upon these guys. Because these guys didn't have to, they could. They had no shortage of powers to summon the gods and do rituals. Trust me, they had crazy powers. But they could just summon the power out of their own body. And that is the energy that makes demons run. Because the level of vibration, and the Mao Shan is actually called the Shang Qing, which means the realm of great purity. It's the highest heaven. So the vibration is even higher than your normal, going to heaven. It's higher than that. And it is the realm of the greatest purity. And what demons are spirits that are running from their own light. Just like evil people. Evil people are people who are running from their own divinity. This is why vampires can't look at themselves in the mirror, because they don't want to see the emptiness, the darkness within them. Because when they look in the mirror, they see that they have no soul, which means they're not living from their soul. And so demons are the same. Evil people are the same. When you operate from the realm of great purity, people see who they really are. And this is frightening unless you are somebody who is seeking the light of the true power of the soul. And so this lightning energy is what protects the soul. The reason why the Shin, the heart-mind energy, is not normally released is because the focus of it is to keep that purity so that the soul can bathe in that purity while it's walking around in this human body, in this three-dimensional, imperfect, difficult, challenging experience where people are evil and they lie to you and they cheat you and they harm you. The soul is protected because it's surrounded by this purity. And so that each of us have that, but in human beings it is kept self-contained. And what these guys did, perhaps they're the first and the only people in the world who were given this gift to learn how to simply, do certain movements that open up the meridians, that open up the locks to release the lightning. This power of greatest purity, which demons cannot tolerate. I've shared experiences where I've walked in the room. In one case, one woman got up, looked at me, and I was just doing some practices in the corner, and she bolted up. She was Her eyes were closed. And she bolted straight up and she looked at me and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just doing my practices." And then she went like this and it literally looked like a marionette, like something pulled her out of the room. And I found out later that she had been talking to a ghost in her house. She'd been having this ongoing communication with a disembodied entity, and of course was following her around. It was in her aura. So I'm the last guy that you want to take onto a ghost hunting expedition, because if I walk into the haunted house, the ghosts are going to hide. You won't have anything happen. You can turn on all that stuff. So we're talking about an energy that is normally unavailable to humans. Only the soul has access to this. But we are in this phase. I've told you this. This time has come. You've been hearing about it for decades. The age of Aquarius, the big shift, the ascension, the Ragnarok, the whatever it is, the tribulation. We've been talking about the time is coming. Well, the time is here now. This is it. It's no longer coming, it's here. And in order for us to survive this shift, we will have to shift as well. So this lightning energy, you see me doing all this stuff over here, what I teach here, is a power that will actually shift. It will shift the vibration of the cells of your body to that of the realm of great purity. And you talk to anybody who's doing this. Talk to anybody who's been practicing it for any length of time, and they will tell you that I wasn't kidding. You do this, and you will become aware of all of that within you which is holding you back. It won't necessarily be pleasant. The energy is very addicting. I mean, the energy is blissful and powerful, but along with that comes the awareness of great clarity. The awareness of great clarity will show you what it is that, your unconscious mind, what your attachments are, what your fears are, what your selfishness is, what your false assumptions about yourself and the world, your victim mentality, anything, greed, all that stuff is going to come to the surface, and you're going to see it and you're going to feel it. And so those of you who are doing it, you now know. I told you. I wasn't kidding around, was I? But we need that, because if we don't, there are like I said, the powers that be are not telling us the truth about anything. Anything. I mean, we've been gaslit about aliens for how long, and was just recently, I can't remember. It's interesting that got lost in the shuffle, but the government the United States government has come out and said, yeah, there's a whole thing with UFOs, and that's real. You're getting all kinds of information about this COVID-19 virus. You're getting all kinds of information about how to deal with it, what it is, how long is it going to last, and the whole world is freaking out. I'm here in Australia, and in the States where they have the big cities where they're having major problems and they're having lockdowns and quarantines, I mean, you can see the look on the politicians' face, because they're, on a daily basis coming and doing, news conferences, and you can see the panic in their face, because they just don't know what they're dealing with. They don't know how to deal with it. And no matter what they do, it's the wrong thing to do. If they lock down and impose quarantines, people get pissed off. If they don't lock down and do quarantines, people get scared. And it's, this is the whole world is flipping out. We're on the verge. I mean, the United States just went through an election, and the population still is split almost down the middle as to who won and who didn't. People don't know what to believe. They don't know what the truth is. If you don't think we're not living in a very volatile time where things could completely get upended, then I'd like for you to do some waking up. In order to survive all of this, we need to have clarity. We need to be able to see the truth. And if you need more strength to be able to truly live and act from the purity of your soul, to be able to know the truth or determine the truth. As I shared with you, I've made some changes in my thoughts, and I am not at all ashamed to tell you that I've made huge mistakes about things. And that's because I do this. I'm no different than you. I have to face the blindness and the misunderstandings and the fears and the truth within me, the attachments that I have, and I have to be willing to die to that. So there's a lot more I can tell you about this, and maybe I will as time goes on, but I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. So let me go ahead and take a look and see. First off, let me say hello to Vincent.thunderwizard.com, who says hello. He is one of my astrologers who went through my astrology certification course. He's a very good astrologer in his own right. You can go to his website and get a reading from him. Agent of the Universe says, by the way, of course, as you know, what I'm looking for is honest questions. And if you have that, you write the word question in all caps and then write your question. Or share your honest feelings. And the reason why I do that is because being able to voice your feelings honestly is one of the first steps towards being able to know the truth. You must first be able to understand your own feelings and be able to know when you are being influenced by your attachments, by your fears, by your agendas. That starts with sharing an honest feeling. An honest feeling is, I feel this. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm scared. An honest feeling is not, I think so-and-so is full of crap. I feel that so-and-so is full of crap. That's not a feeling, that's a judgment. So an honest question is something that you think I know that you don't. Honest feeling is an honest feeling. Agent of the Universe says, honest feeling, I feel loopy and energy everywhere in my body. I can even hear the energy. However, my feelings and unconscious resistance has come up in waves, and there are times it has crushed me. Welcome to the power of the Mao Shan. Exactly the same. When I was training, doing that stuff, and I was training for hours a day, the energy was absolutely, it was just ridiculously unbelievable how much power I was feeling in my body, my whole body. And I did. I would touch people, it'd fall on the ground. Just crazy amounts of energy coming out of me. But after practicing for a couple of hours, and I'd feel all this energy and I'd be breathing, and then all of a sudden I would fall into the fetal position and I'd stay there for 20 minutes because the amount of feelings that were coming up, the impurities on the emotional level that were coming out of me. Because remember, we're dealing with the heart center. The heart is the emotions. And so this will give you direct access to that. But people think they're conscious. Until you find out how unconscious you really are. People think I'm aware of all my feelings until they all come up. And then you realize, oh my God. So I went through the same experience you did, my friend. He says, but it never crushes me permanently. It's always moment by moment. I can even feel energy outside of my body, he says, but it feels like an extension of myself. So, very good. 417, I don't know what you're doing. What are you saying here? So 417, welcome to the channel. Here's how this works. If you have a question, you write the word question in all caps, and then you can ask me. So you ask me, what are you asking? I have no idea what that means. Then you say, could one theoretically learn and create a proven routine from the videos on your channel? Could one theoretically? Which channel are we talking about? Are you talking about the free channel? This one right here? Are you talking about the Patreon channel? Are you talking about the paid services? What are you asking me? It sounds like what you're asking me is, I don't want to pay for anything. I want to go on the free channel, and then I want to create my own routine. My answer to that is, why do you need to create your own routine? I've already given you one. I mean, I've given you numerous ones, but the most powerful one is free, and it's on my channel, and it is the Awakening of the Immortals Qigong routine. So go do that. I specifically put that on there because it's a high level practice, because I didn't want anybody to have to take my word for it. And if somebody really can't afford to do it, which I can't understand, I still can't understand. People leave me comments. I can't, I'm hoping one day to be able to afford your 90-day challenge. And it's like, seriously, you can't afford $55 a month that you can unsubscribe at any time? I mean, forgive me, maybe I'm being harsh, but I mean, are you homeless? How bad is it that, I mean, $55 a month is, don't get a Starbucks coffee for a month. It's totally doable. There's really no excuse. I can't understand it. But, I'm not living in other people's shoes, so I don't know what they have to deal with. So if you want to do something for free, do that. And you can combine that with, there's no shortage of things. There's the heaven, earth, Qigong meditation. That one is free and on the channel. You could do those two things together. You'll never have to do anything else. There's the Hool breath, which is the initiation practice, which in and of itself is a complete practice. You won't need anything else. Those are all free. Why are you asking me these questions? I suppose you're new to the channel, so you don't know any better. So that's why I tell people to put the time and effort to search my channel. Don't just come on here because I'm talking. Maybe YouTube said, come over here, and so now you're here and you don't know. But now I'm telling you, there's over 1,500 videos, free. This other stuff is if you really want me to take you through how to do something, you go here and you subscribe. Like I said, if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe the next day. You haven't lost out anything. The short of the little bit of cash you threw at it, you can walk away from. But there's no shortage of free stuff. You can do the Awakening of the Immortals Qigong, which is probably the most high vibrational free thing that I have. You can do the Heaven Earth Qigong meditation, which is a complete, total energy practice that opens up all of the 9 worlds within you. It literally connects you to both heaven and earth. You become a conduit for both. It is one of the most complete practices ever. If you just did that practice for the rest of your life, you would have everything that you need. And then there's Thor's belt, which you can go, if you look at my playlist, you can see Qigong, and you'll see, I think there's a whole playlist for Thor's belt. Any one of those are there. So to answer your question, it's not theoretical. And in fact, there's a video that I did not too long ago where I give you specific routines based on the free stuff on the channel. So this hypothetical question that you're trying to pose to me is totally unnecessary. But even then, if you took all of the free things that I did with the mantras and the rituals, and if you wanted to take from that, there's no shortage of stuff. You could create your own practice if you want. So theoretically, yeah, you could do exactly what you're asking. Did I answer your question? Let's see what else. Agent of the Universe says, anyway, he says it's really worth it to do the 90-day challenge. He says, I spent $55 numerous times. The practices are really worth it. I didn't have the money at first, but then I did the Hool breath and I got the money. So there you go. Yeah, according to him, if you do the Hool breath, you'll get the money to afford whatever you want. He goes on to say, the Awakening of the Immortals is unlike anything I've ever experienced, however, very powerful stuff. All right. So that's it. I don't see any other questions here. So do you guys have questions? Do you have any questions for me? Let's see. While I'm waiting for questions, let me see if there's something else that I want to tell you about this practice. What's coming to my mind, and I don't know why, but what's coming to my mind when you look at the footwork set. So you see me showing you, or this, I show you little bits and pieces of the footwork set. The footwork set for the Mao Shan practices is, it is one of the most simple and yet one of the most transformative things I've ever experienced. Pretend this is a foot. It's not, it's a hand. But the heel and the ball of the foot, there are two energy gates here. And when you walk heel toe, or when you go into a cat stance and you do these, and this is what I said in the beginning, I saw these guys doing this thing that looked like they were tap dancing. They're actually doing, high-level footwork for the martial art. But what's also happening is what sounded like tap dancing was they were going heel toe, heel toe on the ground as they were doing their footwork. And you do it every time. When you step down heel toe, you actually do this. This is why when you go walking someplace natural, like people, sometimes I'll be on the beach and there will just be streams of people walking in both directions. They're just walking down the beach. Now I'm doing the same thing. But I've come to realize that what's happening is that without realizing it, they are stimulating these two energy gates on the feet. They don't have shoes on, and they're in the sand, which is next to the ocean, which is releasing a lot of negative ions. There's a lot of energy. This is a form of energy work. The people just walking along the sand, heel toe, they're stimulating their entire energy body. All of the meridians are getting balanced. So when you learn how to turn up the heat on that and learn how to really do that, what looked like, funny looking tap dancing, the energy that starts to come up from the feet and the earth, you get this power from the earth that is also, there's a whole science behind the human body that we haven't even begun. We don't need entheogens. We don't need ayahuasca. I mean, if you want to do it, go ahead, but you don't need it. You don't need ayahuasca. You don't need mushrooms. You don't need peyote buttons. You don't need any of that stuff. Your body, the 5 organs of the body, represent the 5 elements. And besides doing the normal things of filtering your blood and digesting food, etc., then when you start to really be able to tap into all of the energies from outside and inside your body, the organs become these capacitors where those 5 elements start to radiate energy and release energy, and you start to shift. And you become far more than a physical person. And so this is where we're headed if we listen. And now it's not going to be just a few people on a mountaintop somewhere. It's going to be the average person can do this if they want. This is now, the universe is making it available to everyone. So if we want to evolve, that's the path we need to take. And I'm offering you one that I believe, in my experience, is easily the most powerful energy I've ever felt in my whole life. And I've practiced a lot of stuff in my 30 years of researching and practicing. Okay, so bear in mind again, guys, please follow instructions. What's the 2 most important things in life? Pay attention and put effort. So what is it that I like? I like to see the word question in all caps. I like to see the word honest feeling in all caps. So if you're going to do that, please follow my directions. And why do I do that? So that I won't miss what you have to say. So I'm doing it for you. That's not just because I'm anal retentive, which I am. It's because I really want to best help you. And so you're working against yourself when you don't listen. So Cody Hill and I have history. He says, I truly feel bad for the message that I sent you. Oh, I apologize. It's just been weighing on me. I have family members who have been injured by the vaccines. I shouldn't have reacted. All right, I understand that, and I can appreciate that honest feeling. And I appreciate the apology. Agent of the Universe question: is it possible to combine the Omnipotence series with the Awakening the Immortals? What would be the result of such a combination? Why don't you do it and find out? What do you mean, is it possible? Of course it's possible. If you go here, the Awakening the Immortals is one step below the Warrior Challenge, but you already had access to that. If the, you know, I mean, you can do. Look, if you go here, there's going to be multiple levels of subscription. So the first level is what I created. I don't even know how many years ago, but I created it because people were reading my books. Again, how many of you are reading my books? I mean, I've got so much stuff out there. But at that time, people were reading my books and they were wanting to learn shamanism. And so I created the Shamanism Mastery Course. And so for $25 a month, you get access to, I mean, there's no way you could learn all of that stuff in a year. I can't even imagine. It would take a very long time to learn that. So that's just the 25. And then you go up to 50, and 50 is the what you just mentioned, the Omnipotence series. Now is at that level. You know, that's learning how to understand how to get the matrix to do what you want, how to not be a victim of circumstance. And if you understand that the matrix, three-dimensional physical reality, what my ancestors called the web of weird, Maya, if you understand that that is, it's an interactive matrix that you can flip the switches on and off and get it to do whatever you want. So you can learn for $50 a month, you can do that. So of course you can. Awakening the Immortals is free. You do that other one, you put them together. Of course you can do that. That's what I'm giving everybody. I'm trying to give people what I would want. Some people want to be told, do A plus B plus C. I'm not one of those people. I'm not one of those gurus that does that. Let me give you an example of that. Was it Maharishi Mahesh Yogi? I can't remember who it was. There was a type of meditation, it was very popular in the 70s. He was one of these gurus. He talked like this, and he would sit on a big giant sofa, and he was surrounded with flowers, and he would talk like this on television all the time. And he taught a certain type of meditation, and he would charge people. I think it was $5,000. I could be wrong, but it was a lot of money. He would charge people $5,000, and he would give them a specific meditation just for them. He would say, I'm going to give you a mantra just for you. So people would pay this exorbitant amount of money, and then he would whisper in their ear a one-word seed mantra, and he would say, that's just for you. Don't share that with anybody. And because he was such a guru, nobody would disobey him. But what he was doing was he was just giving basic seed sound mantras. You know, like the mantra Om, it's a seed sound. There's Om, Shrim, Hrim, Krim, Ain. There's a bunch of them. I mean, there's no end to them. Ing. There's no shortage of all these different seed sounds. And he would give these basic ones. If anybody had just the most basic understanding of mantra, they would know of these seed sounds. So he would whisper in their ear. And the reason he was doing that was twofold. Was if he just came out and said to somebody, Aing, that's yours, then they'd go to somebody else and they'd say, I was given a special mantra. I paid $5,000. It's Aing. Somebody would say, what are you talking about? That is a basic seed sound. You just paid $5,000 for something you can get in a book for $10. But what was brilliant about it is that because they thought it was their own special thing, they practiced it. And they practiced it like it was the most powerful thing, and it ended up being that for them. And it wasn't until I don't know how much later that people started getting together and finding out what he did. But it was brilliant. It was brilliant from a standpoint of a teacher who wanted to make money, because that's what teachers do. You know, don't let people, you know, once you take away the magic of the basic thing that anybody can do, then you lose. You're the loser. In other words, if I did the same thing with the Hool breath, I mean, I give it out for free. But I'm not kidding when I tell you that the Hool breath is everything. If you just did that for 2 hours a day for the rest of your life, you would achieve, you'd float. You'd leave this world. You would no longer be a normal human. And of course, nobody takes me seriously because I give it to you for free. But if I charged $10,000 for it, because you paid so much money, trust me, you'd put that 2 hours a day in it, and it would transform you. So that was one of the genius things that he did. And the other genius thing was, as a businessman, he gets these uneducated white people who aren't educated in seed sound mantras, and he tells them that, and each person thinks that that's their own specific little sound that is only for them, and there's nobody else in the world doing their specific secret little sound. But who cares? If it works, who cares? I'm not one of those people. I mean, the amount of powerful practices that I've given out for free is mind-bogglingly stupid of me from a financial perspective. So I'm not kidding when I say to you guys, put time and effort into searching the channel. If you did any one of those free practices as if it was you'd spent $100,000 and it's your way out of reality, out of the matrix. If you did that, you would see, you would have an experience. What's keeping you from having that enlightenment experience is you not valuing what has been given to you. And this is one of my greatest teachings for you, which is that if you learn how to ask the right questions, this is where the teacher-student relationship is important. I block people that are disrespectful. And of course, I don't want any of that negative energy. But the other thing is, I block them because they are damaging themselves. Because as the teacher, I represent to your unconscious your higher self. I'm not your higher self, but I'm just the symbol of that. And this is why in the beginning, when you work with a teacher, oftentimes you will idealize the teacher. That's a good thing, because that means you are now listening to your higher self. Now the teacher has to be mature enough to know that that's their own internal experience they're just projecting onto me, so I'm not going to take that personally. But I'm also going to make sure not to talk them out of it. I'm not going to talk them out of their experience. But I'm also not going to abuse it. And that's the path that teachers have to walk. And unfortunately, most gurus do not pass that test. But what I'm not doing is I am not holding back. If I charge money for something, it's because it either really is something that is of such a high, powerful level that it deserves that. You deserve to invest in that, because when you invest in something, you will get a return. But it's also important because the level of energy of that, the stuff that you're paying for, you'll see the level of energy is beyond what you feel comfortable with. And so that's discipline. So if you pay money, you're going to show up to class, you're going to do the work whether you like it or not. If you don't pay for it, then forgive me for saying so, but Agent of the Universe, now Agent of the Universe is looking for, he says, I didn't want to pay for it because, what did he say? I didn't spend $55 again recently because the Awakening the Immortals is already powerful for me. So he's looking for ways to not discipline himself and get, I understand, I'm always looking for a good deal on surfboards, so I get it. If I can get a surfboard for $300, I will. If I have to pay $1,000, you got to prove to me that it's worth my money. So I get that. But this is why, if I were, perhaps I would be a better teacher if I were more strict. And I said, the only way that you can do any of this stuff is you have to pay $500 and give me your firstborn. Maybe if I did that, it would be better for you. But I'm trying to give people what I would want for myself. So anyway, I don't know what the hell I just said, but let's see. What else? Joni B, do you see above Agent of the Universe? Do you see how he wrote down the word question? Please do that. Why? I don't want to miss your question. You say, hey, Thunder Wizard, do you mind if I ask a question? You just asked me a question. Baba Junzo, question. Did the founders of Mao Shan come to find out that the postures they were doing could fight demons first thing? Or was that discovered by later practitioners? Dude, have you been smoking weed? That is a very intellectual question. I honestly don't know. Here's what I can tell you about this practice. One of the reasons why the other Taoists were so afraid of the Mao Shan and they used to call them sorcerers is because if you want to be somebody who works directly with the spirits, like you want to have a personal relationship with some high-level master and have that high-level master give you a secret power, you're going to have to go through here. This is where you do it. The other Taoists, they work from the navel. I'm touching my navel center. The navel center is about routine, about practices and rules. The Mao Shan are a left-hand path, which means that they seek for power and they seek to work directly with the spirits. And the downside of it is the danger is they can become Darth Vaders. The downside of the right-hand path, which is every other Taoist practice, which is navel center, the downside of that is that you have to do it for a long time. And you can't try and deviate from the dogma, the techniques. You have to follow and be disciplined. And after decades of discipline, then the energy moves up to the heart and then you can begin that process. So the downside is that you have to have, for the right-hand path, is that you have to have discipline and patience. And you get less levels of energy, but you don't have to worry about becoming an evil sorcerer or losing your way and, following the rules and all that. The left-hand path says, I don't want to do that. I want to get to the power as quickly as possible. But the downside of it is you have to feel all of your negative unconscious feelings and you have to get past the temptation of pure power. But you can work directly with the spirits who will give you special powers and all kinds of other stuff like that. So there's dangers on both sides. The right-hand path is good for people who are egotistical, who are not fully conscious, because they don't release all of their unconscious garbage. They have, the discipline of getting up at 4:30 every morning and doing an hour and a half of yoga and then doing this and then not having sex and not eating certain foods, and all of that keeps you safe. All of that discipline keeps you from acting against yourself. So the left-hand path is a dangerous path because you don't have to follow that. You get power immediately, but you also have all of your negative stuff. And so my teachers would always talk about Yoda and Darth Vader, and that this path, you can become a Yoda or a Darth Vader. It's up to you. You have to discipline yourself. And of course, they would say, if we see you going down the wrong path, we're going to make sure that you don't hurt anybody else. And I was given, I won't get into it. I chose very early on to. It was made very clear to me by non-human powers that what I was being given was the equivalent of a nuclear bomb, and that if I misused it, that I would suffer the consequences. So I ended up making a vow of nonviolence. So I will never, under any circumstances, use my skills on anybody. At first it was, I won't use my skills unless somebody is in danger. And then I said, wait, I'm not even going to manifest that. I'm going to manifest so that nothing ever has to happen, that I never have to use my skills. And it's worked. And, that's something, if you don't have that within you, then the left-hand path can destroy you. But we're in a stage right now where we're destroying ourselves anyway. So we have to have the power to overcome the self-destruction that is manifesting in the entire world, in politics, in the media, in viruses, and all kinds of things. All right, what else? So I don't know how to answer your question because I don't know. But what I can tell you is that you will learn. Probably what happened is somebody probably wanted the power to fight demons, and because they were working with this, they were given that. And once you learn the basics of this, which I haven't even taught some of the more powerful sorcery, really simple sorcery stuff. When you learn how to do that, you can ask and they will give you crazy powerful things. And I to be honest, it frightens me. To be honest, I don't understand why they give things out so freely, but they do. But I'm not going to teach that yet. Let's see what else. Joni B, I'm a good guy. Is that a question? All right. So Paul Kopari, question. Which meditation do you suggest for clearing obstacles and manifesting? All of them. I mean, any of them, all of them. Just do it. Just do one. I mean, the whole breath. Just do that one. The heaven earth meditation. Do the lightning qigong. If to answer your question, I'm trying to give people, I'm not trying to force them down any path, but this was created when you click on here and you subscribe to that. You're going to get access to members only videos. Those videos, you literally just click play and you just listen to me narrate as you watch me do a whole routine. I'm doing, a combination of Kundalini Yoga, Qigong, and Mao Shan Qigong, all wrapped up together. And that stimulates the Qi, the Kundalini, and the Shin. And it will open up the heart center, and I take you through through a day. I give you a morning practice, an afternoon, and an evening practice. And those things are designed to get you to do exactly what you said. So the best answer to your question is to subscribe there. What else? Joni B, question. So, Joni B, here's what a question is. An honest question is when you think I have the answer to something that you don't know. Telling me your opinion is not a question. And that's what you did. You said, that's what I think. And that's awesome. But that's not a question. Ask me something that you don't know that you think I do, and I'll be happy to answer that. You'll also be better served if you ask questions about what I'm teaching. I'm open to take questions outside of that. But, the more time that you spend learning, watching the videos, doing the practices, when your questions are rooted in the practices that I have you doing, then you're going to stimulate me to want to talk about it. But asking me these general questions that you could ask any spiritual teacher, and you really just kind of want me to agree with you because that's what you think, and you want to have a buddy, sort of reflect back and agree with you on that. That's not really what I do. Okay? So I want you to get the most out of this channel. So spend some time on the channel, ask me about things that I teach or what I'm talking about, and I will be happy. I'll be even more happy to answer your question. But in any case, that's not a question, that's your opinion, and it's a beautiful opinion, you have the right to it. But yeah. Anything else? Nothing else. All right, guys, so more stuff is coming. I just uploaded a video to this channel. I'm about to upload some crazy, if you want to see me go deep into the rabbit hole of what I think is really going on under the surface or what could be going on under the surface. I'm about to upload that, so go to odyssey.com, ODYSEE.com, and look for thunderwizard.com, thunderwizard, DOTCOM. There are things that I can't talk about here on YouTube because if I do, they'll shut me down. So that's it. I hope you're all doing well. Stay safe. And I'll see you around next time. All right, take care.